Copyright is something important, and there's a few things that you do pick up on from that, and it's how you communicate is another thing. So, you know, even from the smallest of things like that. But communication, I mean, even from asking, you know, complete strangers, you can get work from it. And a prime example of that was a guy that I managed to shoot in Edinburgh, and because he's in a music band, he was asking me to do work for him. So even in something as small as that, and plus the fact I came across a guy and a lassie who were up from London, and I shot their portrait, and one of them happened to be a model and the other a hairstylist, and she followed me on Instagram, and she was saying that we should collaborate at some point. When it comes down to things like fashion photography, it really isn't as simple as just, you know, oh, here's clothes, you know, you're shooting for the sake of showing off the clothes that they wear. The industry has changed a lot. For what used to be a case of just shooting for what they were wearing, nowadays it's become more of an image of the person, and it's moved along the lines of a more sexual content. And from that, it's quite interesting seeing how things have dramatically changed, and even doing the photo editing, the manipulation. There was a recent talk we had on how it would affect people, and it is something, because I had an ex who suffered from anorexia, and it's something of a very touchy subject, and I used to tell her that all of these magazine covers and everything, they're very strongly manipulated in many ways. There is a connection between the actual portrait of the person to that of what they're selling. So it's not as simple as here's a bottle of perfume. It's something that the photographer captures a sort of pose and how they look in relation to try and sell the actual product. The documentary on the street photography, fascinating, especially with regards to the different characters, the different style of photography. One guy is very much assertive, like putting the camera right up to people's faces and how they would react. Of course, his attitude is like he just doesn't really care, especially if, you know, he gets into a rut over the certain issues. But I do think that the message of what's put across is that how you communicate is, you know, how people will react to you, of course, and I think it's important to be considerate. So the contributions that I've made so far this year, I would say, would be the questions that I've asked that got interesting answers back at the talks that we've had throughout the year so far. Another one would be the Photoshop. I understand it to an advanced level because I did web design, the feel and look of, you know, websites. Other contributions would probably be, I would say, the work. It's the biggest contribution. Such as the people at work that we had shot, the stylish portraits, and the rush hour, as well as several other projects. But I think most importantly, I think that the biggest thing would be being able to help one another. A prime example of that would be a project that we were given. My own project was to shoot something in relation to square slice sausages, so I decided to go to the Savoy Centre, and it was a case that I got advice from a friend in the class, and I was able to give my own advice. So it's a case of bouncing off one another in terms of ideas, and that can be really helpful. Another example of that is a recent project we've been given, and it's in relation with the fashion and creating our own backdrop and coming up with the idea. We're able to give our own ideas, and especially with the lighting and how things would look, and my own contributions providing the idea of creating like a sort of Venetian blinds type of effect with the type of noir photography. So really it's all down to the ideas that they come up with. I would say what I'm looking forward to most this year is seeing what I can come up with, despite the fact that I'm not really a big fan of the whole fashion photography. It's a lot of pressure because I've never dealt with the collaboration with stylists or models, etc. So for me it's more to do with the result, to see what I can come up with. At the end of the day I have a vague idea of what I would like to do, and from that it would be interesting to see the end result of the images. I would really like to see if I can come up with some professional looking images, and that's the most important thing. I'm a very big fan, of course, of the Photoshop stuff. I think that there's certain things that may be coming up that will really interest me. I did ask about, I think it's a type of software that's not Camera Raw, but Capture One Pro, that we might be getting shown and introduced to. So that's something I may be looking forward to. And plus the fact, if there's anything that I may not know already on the Photoshop side of things, it could be handy. In terms of other work, I'm pretty sure we'll have our own self-initiated project, and I'm very much into the whole outdoor scene of things, so that's another thing. And plus the fact we were told about doing outdoor portraiture, shooting on location, and that's something that really interests me. So I'm really looking forward to basically doing the actual practical work of it, going out and shooting the portraits on location and being creative with that, because I think that's something that I would really love, more so than perhaps the studio. I think the studio for me is it's a bit of a mess at times, and it can be hectic as well. I'd probably work in a studio better by myself than working in an environment where it's cluttered, where other people are working in the same environment. So the funny thing is probably in the industry it's like that, but you have to work around it. So at the end of the day, I think that it's the end results that I'm looking forward to see, because the fact that I'm not really experienced with the portraiture, and it's something I would really like to do, especially if I'm going to do any family photography or wedding photography. So to build a portfolio from that is the most important thing for me.